Hi, my name is Katie Janisek and I'm a health educator in the Health Promotion Department at the University Health Center. If you haven't had a chance to check out the Health Center, I invite you to do so. It's awesome. We have tons of great services and departments. For example, the Health Promotion Department is home of our state-of-the-art nutrition kitchen. We also have 2 registered dietitians. Although we may look expensive, we're actually the best deal in town. Keep in mind that the University Health Center is not just for when you're sick. You may remember from orientation that we introduced you to the Health Center's mascot, Healthy Dog. Healthy Dog is a juggling dog that's representing the multi-dimensions of health and wellness. The 6 balls represented by the Healthy Dog mascot are physical, intellectual, social, spiritual, environmental, and emotional. The key message there is that you have to keep all those dimensions in balance. Health is not just the absence of injury or sickness. College is all about new and exciting experiences, but sometimes bad things can happen when we least expect them. In order to minimize the risk of negative consequences, we're here to give you information about low-risk alcohol use and preventing sexual assault. First, we're going to hear from Betria Stinson, our alcohol and other drug educator. Betria works within the John Fontaine Jr. Center for Alcohol Awareness and Education. The center is named after a 16-year-old young man who lost his life in an alcohol-related car crash. The mission of the center is to raise awareness about low-risk drinking in order to help students make safe and healthy decisions. We're also going to hear from Tara Misra, our violence prevention coordinator. We know that you're all adults and you'll be making your own decisions while you're here at UGA. We want you to make decisions that are smart and healthy. But first up, here's Betria.
Hello, my name is Betria Stinson. I'm the Alcohol and Other Drug Health Educator and Advisor for the Fontaine Center Student Advisory Board. You will see me around campus in your residence halls, classrooms, fraternity and sorority houses presenting on alcohol and drug use. So I have a question for you. Who do you think are the top 3 high-risk groups that consume alcohol on any college campus? Fraternities, sororities, athletes, and freshmen. We really try to target these groups with programming and education so they can make healthier and low-risk decisions when it comes to alcohol. As you know, UGA has a party school reputation, and the reason that is because of the Princeton Review gives out the yearly party school ranking. They surveyed approximately 325 students, and we really do not know what they asked them or what rubric they used to give us that title. We do not stand by that ranking here at UGA. Here at the University Health Center, we disseminate the National College Health Assessment and the Core Alcohol and Other Drugs Survey, which are conducted every 2 years. Here are the 2 questions that we asked on the 2011 surveys. The first one, what percentage of UGA students drink alcohol? 80% said that they drink alcohol. What percentage of UGA students reported not binge drinking in the past 2 weeks? Well, out of the 80% that reported trying alcohol, 62% reported consuming alcohol in a low-risk way. So you have to remember that the surveys are randomly sent to different students and have had the same results for the past 7 to 8 years. So we definitely stand by our numbers. These statistics just prove that UGA students make low-risk decisions about alcohol most of the time. Statistics show that there are many reasons as to why people start to drink. It could be personality, attitude, beliefs. Some people believe that partying and high-risk drinking is a rite of passage for college students, or something that you do for 4 years and quit once you graduate. There's also family and peers. Media messages can also influence your choices. Culture and society also influences your choices. There are many things happening on UGA's campus and in downtown Athens that would feed into the misperception that UGA is a party school. There's tailgating for football games. There are many clubs and bars downtown. Athens is known for its music and concerts. And there are also many events like Twilight, Criterium, and AthFest. I definitely want you all to realize that it is not all UGA students attending these events. The biggest predictor of alcohol consumption among college students is the perception of what their peers are doing, and there is an overestimation of how much and how often college students drink. Let's switch and now focus on alcohol and how it affects the body. Alcohol goes anywhere where blood goes, so it goes to your head, stomach, fingertips, and toes. The liver metabolizes one standard drink in 1 hour. Nothing can speed up the process of alcohol going through your body, not food, water, coffee, or anything else you may have heard. Alcohol is a diuretic, so there is a portion that is not metabolized. Some people sweat, breathe, or urinate the remaining amount out of the body. There are 2 types of impairment, mental and physical. With mental impairment, alcohol is distributed throughout the body, affecting the brain and other tissues. Within minutes of being ingested, alcohol reaches the brain and initially gives a temporary impression of being a stimulant. After consuming more drinks, it goes on to act as a depressant. Remarkably, mental impairment happens first, but many people go by physical impairment, which can be very dangerous. For a person that has a high tolerance, it could take many drinks for them to feel the alcohol and know when to stop. The individual may feel that it is okay for them to drive, but their blood alcohol level may be over the 0.08 limit, leading to a DUI or worse. When we are born, each person has a set tolerance and trigger level, which varies from person to person. The trigger level is the point at which alcoholism and drug addiction occurs, and it is based on your family history. This guy has a low trigger level because his dad is an alcoholic. As he continues to drink, over time his tolerance level increases and passes his trigger level, which means that he is on the path of becoming an alcoholic. It is important for you as a college student to keep in mind your family history if you decide to drink. I'm sure throughout this program you have heard me use the term high-risk drinking, which we use in place of binge drinking. High-risk drinking is 4 or more drinks for a female in one day and 5 or more drinks for a male in one day. With high-risk drinking, it's not just the amount that you drink, but there are other risks that can affect impairment as well. Here are some of the individual impairment factors. Women have less of an enzyme called dehydrogenase in the body, so alcohol passes through their stomachs and into their bloodstream quicker than in men. A person with less body fluid usually becomes more impaired than a person who has more body fluid due to the higher concentration of alcohol in the blood. For women, we have a smaller body size and less fluid per pound of weight, so impairment happens more quickly. It's so important to eat a full meal before drinking alcohol and during. Alcohol is absorbed in the small intestine, so eating food can slow down the absorption of alcohol into one's system. The pyloric valve at the bottom of the stomach will close in order to hold food in the stomach for digestion and keep the alcohol from reaching the small intestine. While alcohol will be absorbed from the stomach, it is a slower and less efficient transition. If you're ill or if you're tired, you're likely to experience greater impairment than usual. And also, it's so important not to take alcohol with drugs or medication. Certain combinations can lead to injury or death. For women, if it's that time of the month, or if you're on the birth control pill, you're likely to experience greater impairment than any other time of the month. Alcohol can also affect your mood and expectations. If you're really excited, ready to hang out with friends, then alcohol can add to that emotion and make you the life of the party. If you're sad and you decide to drink, it can make you depressed and worsen your mood. There are some serious consequences when it comes to high-risk drinking. Your health can be affected. There's this thing called fatty liver, which are just fat deposits that collect on your liver. There's also neurological damage, and of course alcoholism, which we talked about earlier. Your academic performance can suffer. Alcohol causes impaired abstract thinking. Abstract thinking is just thinking about the things you can't see or feel, such as learning a theory, concept, doing a math problem. So in college, you're using a lot of your abstract thinking skills right now. So with alcohol impairing that abstract thinking, there is that correlation with having a lower GPA. Alcohol can affect your social skills. You may do or say things you may regret. Drunk dials, texts, hookups. These things can damage your reputation. Alcohol impairment can lead you to serious problems such as DUIs, sexual assaults, fights, and injuries. If you decide to drink, one definite way to reduce your risk is by knowing what a standard drink is for different types of drinks. A standard drink is 12 ounces of beer, 4 to 5 ounces of wine, and 1 ounce of 100 proof liquor. All of these measurements contain a ½ ounce of pure alcohol. Now everyone knows that the solo cup is a usual cup that is used at parties, but did you know that the lines on the cup are actual measurements for drinks? The bottom line represents 1 ounce for liquor, the middle line is 5 ounces for wine, and the next line up is 12 ounces for beer. If you are at a party, then using those lines is a great tool to know how much you are drinking. Mixed drinks sometimes contain many standard drinks. For instance, a Long Island iced tea actually has 5 to 7 standard drinks in one glass. If someone consumes 3 Long Island iced teas, then he or she is consuming 15 to 21 standard drinks, and it will take the body 15 to 21 hours to metabolize those 3 drinks. If you are at a restaurant, bar, or party, you have to keep in mind that it may be free pour, so there may be more drinks in your cup than you think. As I mentioned earlier, binge drinking is high-risk drinking. We at the Fontaine Center would like to suggest these simple 013 low-risk guidelines. 0 represents the people that should not drink at all. If you are driving, under the age of 21, on medication, chemically dependent, sick, have a strong family history of alcoholism, or pregnant and nursing, then you should not have alcohol at all. The number 1 represents 1 hour it takes for your body to metabolize 1 standard drink. 3, stop at 3 drinks on any given day and never 3 drinks daily. If you follow these guidelines, then you will reduce your risk of dealing with the high-risk consequences that I mentioned earlier. If you are ever in a situation of where you think someone has alcohol poisoning, then follow the ABCDs for an alcohol emergency. A stands for arouse. Turn the person on his or her side. If unconscious, get help. B stands for breathing. Look for fewer than 8 breaths per minute, or more than 10 seconds between breaths. C stands for color. Skin will be pale, cold, clammy, and may turn a bluish tint. For those of darker complexion, then look at the fingernails, toenails, bottom of the hands, and feet for the color change. D stands for discuss. After the emergency, share your concerns and suggest that he or she get help. We are excited that you are here at the University of Georgia. We care about you, and we suggest that you follow these harm reduction strategies. Make sure you use a designated driver. It's so important to designate that person before you decide to go out or before you start drinking. You can also program a local cab company's phone number into your cell. It's very important to make sure you eat a full meal before you drink and while you're drinking. A great idea is to drink mocktails. They look very similar to alcoholic drinks and will allow you to fit in without necessarily drinking. Or you can just have something in your hand, which can also help you save money. Also, you should avoid drinking games. And last but not least, make sure you have a friend checkup or buddy system. If you decide to go downtown, then make sure you go with a friend and leave with the same person. To continue the conversation about harm reduction strategies and personal safety, I would like to introduce you to my colleague, Tara.
Hello and welcome to the University of Georgia community. My name is Tara Misra. I am the Relationship and Sexual Violence Prevention Coordinator on campus. They also call me the RSVP. My job has 2 aspects to it. The first is to offer educational programs for students in classrooms, residence halls, and in Greek organizations talking about how interpersonal violence impacts college students. Now, when I say interpersonal violence, I'm talking about stalking, sexual assault, and dating abuse. The other aspect of my job is to offer advocacy for students who have experienced violence themselves. So I can write letters to your professor requesting flexibility with assignments or exams. I can help get you transferred into a different section of a class. I can help you change your housing arrangement. Really, whatever kind of advocacy a student requires, I am the point person for that. So please, if you or someone you care about has been impacted by violence, do not hesitate to contact me. As my colleague Betria mentioned, one must be cautious about alcohol consumption because of its potential impact on your health. One must also be cautious because of how alcohol can impact our behavior as it relates to others. When you consume alcohol, you're more likely to trust someone that you don't know. You're less likely to be able to detect danger. You're less able to defend yourself. Your inhibitions tend to be lowered. It's harder to think clearly. It makes it hard to communicate and understand somebody else's sexual limits. You're less likely to use condoms or practice safe sex, and it tends to contribute to increased aggression. And this is tricky because there are some economies that depend on sex and alcohol. This is of course an image of Las Vegas, but it could also be spring break or Mardi Gras. We're constantly sold this idea that we have fun when we mix alcohol and sex in particular, but the truth is that 75% of men and 55% of women involved in acquaintance rape had been drinking or taking drugs prior to the incident. The fact is that meeting new people and having relationships can be a natural part of college, but consider this. Women in college are at a greater risk of rape and sexual assault than women in the general population in a comparable age group. 60% of acquaintance rapes on college campuses occur in casual or steady dating relationships. 90% of college women who are victims of rape or attempted rape know their assailant. 20% of college students report violence by a current partner. 80% of victims of stalking know their stalker, and they are identified most often as a current or previous partner. Violence in a relationship is about power and control. It can manifest in physical abuse, psychological, emotional abuse, or sexual abuse. Physical abuse can include scratching, pushing, biting, choking, slapping, burning, use of a weapon, or even murder. Psychological abuse is intended to invoke fear and insecurity. It can include humiliation, controlling what a partner can and cannot do, isolation from friends and family, denying a partner access to money or other basic resources, using racial, ethnic, or religious slurs, making threats against oneself, the partner, family, or pets, and constantly checking up, which can be identified as a stalking behavior, which is considered under the umbrella of psychological abuse. Stalking tends to refer to harassing or threatening behavior engaged in repeatedly that would cause a reasonable person fear. This can include following an individual, appearing at their work or residence, making harassing phone calls, leaving written messages or objects, or vandalizing property. Now, what's tricky about stalking is that these behaviors, when taken individually, may not be illegal. It's not illegal to drive by somebody's apartment, but if someone is repeatedly driving by your apartment and you're not sure what they're going to do next, that can be very, very scary. And for a lot of people, these behaviors start out as actually flattering behaviors, flattering attention, but over time, they can generate a lot of fear in the long term. Persons aged 18 to 24 experience the highest rates of stalking victimization, and approximately 25% of stalking victims reported some form of cyberstalking, including email and instant messaging. When we think about sexually abusive behaviors, we generally think about rape, sexual assault, and child molestation, but there are other examples of sexually abusive behaviors that you might not have otherwise considered. These behaviors can include forcing somebody to watch porn, videotaping or photographing someone without their consent, circulating images without consent, constantly accusing somebody of cheating, or forcing someone to dress in a sexually provocative way. There are many physical and mental health consequences of abuse that can impact your life in the short term and the long term. Physically, abuse contributes to chronic health problems, hypertension, seizures, headaches, fatigue, insomnia, sexually transmitted infections or HIV, unintended pregnancy, and mentally it can contribute to depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, shame, low self-esteem, humiliation, trouble concentrating, drug addiction, and self-injury. Now, how would these consequences impact your success at the University of Georgia? Pretty clearly, a lot of these consequences would sabotage your academic success at the very least. Many myths exist in our society about rape. These myths reinforce false stereotypes about victimization and perpetration of sexual violence and are extremely misleading. One myth includes the idea that rape is provoked by the victim. Victims ask for it by their behaviors or how they dress. The fact is that saying someone wants to be raped is the same as saying people ask to be robbed. Rape is a violent attack on an individual using sex as a weapon. It is used to defile, degrade, and destroy a victim's control over his or her own body. For the victim, it is a humiliating, potentially near-death situation. No person would ask for or deserve such an attack. Another myth is that women often lie about rape or falsely accuse people of rape. The fact is, according to the FBI, false reports make up 8% or less of reported cases of rape. This figure is approximately the same as other violent crimes. Of 100 rapes, 46 will be reported to the police. Of those, 12 will be arrested. Of those, 9 will be prosecuted. Of those, 5 will be convicted, and of those, 3 will spend more than a single night in jail. The other 97 will walk free. Rapes committed by someone the victim knows are even less likely to be reported. Another myth is that rapists hide in dark alleys waiting for a stranger to walk by. The fact is that the majority of reported rapes occur either in the victim's home or the home of the attacker. Most rape victims know their attacker at least casually, and overwhelmingly, offenders were someone who were well known to the victim and in a relationship that one would normally trust, such as a boyfriend, family friend, close neighbor, or relative. Another myth is that men cannot be raped. The fact is that any man can be sexually assaulted regardless of their size, strength, appearance, occupation, race, or sexual orientation. If men are sexually assaulted by women, they are less likely to report because of fear of not being believed. We have gender expectations of men that they are ready for sex all the time, so it would be impossible for a woman to rape them. If men are raped by other men, it brings up the stigma of homophobia. There are ways to reduce your risk of sexual assault. Psychologically speaking, you want to expect respect and avoid those who do not give it to you. Trust your instincts. If you feel uncomfortable about a person or situation, remove yourself immediately. Learn to be assertive. Enforce your rights without violating the rights of others. Do not be afraid to make a scene if you are threatened. Do not fall into the polite trap. When you're with acquaintances, if you're at a party or another function, do not leave with a person you don't know very well. Remember that alcohol and drugs lower your inhibitions and make you more vulnerable to sexual assault. If you are drinking, pour it yourself and never leave it unattended. Be careful when inviting someone to your residence or accepting an invitation to someone else's residence. And set sexual limits and communicate those limits clearly. Beware of partners who disregard your requests. When walking, do not wear headphones. Walk confidently, directly, and at a steady pace, even if you're lost. Keep your hands free. Avoid overloading yourself with packages and books. If you must walk alone, walk a different route each time so that you don't have a fixed pattern. Avoid dark, vacant, or deserted areas. Dress in clothes that will not compromise movement. For example, I only wear shoes that I can run in if I need to. Be aware of your surroundings. Look, listen, and notice if someone is following you. If you're afraid, join any group of people nearby, cross the street, and increase your pace. Go to an open building or business. Do not allow yourself to be moved to another location with someone who is threatening you. If a threatening situation is imminent, yell, scream, blow a whistle, or make a commotion in any way you can to get the attention of others. Remember that people are more likely to respond to shouts of fire and call 911 than to shouts of rape. This is because when you shout rape, it tends to make people want to run away, as opposed to shouting fire, which tends to draw a crowd. If a friend discloses to you, believe them. Tell them you are sorry this happened to them. Assure them that they are in a safe place with you. Remind them that what the perpetrator did was wrong. Do not interrogate, challenge, or blame them. Encourage them to pursue emotional support. Offer to accompany them in seeking medical care. Explore legal or disciplinary options. And a note to young men. If someone you care about has disclosed that they were a victim of sexual violence, do not go on a violent tirade about what you want to do to the perpetrator. Focus instead on the friend who's in front of you and what they are asking of you. Victims of violence do not want to be confronted by more violence. We are a community at the University of Georgia, and the university is committed to providing a safe and respectful environment for living, working, and learning. To that end, and in accordance with federal and state law, the university does not condone interpersonal violence of any kind, including sexual and relationship violence. Safety and freedom from fear are basic human rights. If you are a victim, it is not your fault, and support is available. For more information, please visit my website at uhs.uga.edu/RSVP or call me at 706-542-SAFE.
Remember that we are here at the Fontaine Center as a resource if you or a friend needs help. My email address is bstinson@uhs.uga.edu. And the health promotion phone number is 706-542-8690.